Hi, my name's Aisha and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. In today's video, I'm going to be answering a question that I received over on Instagram. Sometimes in life you skip over the more simpler things, and I realise I've been talking about house buying, but I actually haven't said clearly and simply what the steps are to buying a house, and so that's what today's video is going to be about. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you think that you have a friend or someone you know who might benefit from this video, then please share it with them and leave a comment below as well. So I've got just over 100 subscribers to go until I reach 1,000, so nearly there. I did say when I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to let you know the finances for the last project. So whether I made money, did I even make money? Maybe I made a loss, who knows? Did I just break even? Am I rolling in money? You don't know, but you will know once I get to 1,000 subscribers. So hit that button if you haven't already. Okay, so let's talk about buying a property. Before I go into the steps, I'm going to say that it's worth making sure that you've checked your finances, you're aware of what you spend out every month, maybe you've checked your credit score and things like that. It's good to be aware of what's going on with your finances, because especially if you use a broker that's not with a bank, they're going to ask you all kinds of questions about your spending. They're going to ask you all kinds of silly questions like how much do you spend to go on holiday? If you're going out, how much do you need to socialise every month, and so on and so forth. If you go with a bank's broker, then they won't ask you those questions. They just want to know about the hard cost stuff. So maybe if you have any debt, if you're paying off any loans, any student loans, things like that. But if you go and speak to a broker that's maybe in an estate agent, or if you find yourself another type of broker, then they will ask you all kinds of obscure questions. That's why I kind of don't really use them, because I don't think it matters how much I spend on holidays or how much I spend to eat out. If I don't have money to eat out, I'm not going to eat out. If I don't have money for a holiday, I'm not going on holiday. So the bank's brokers won't ask those kind of questions. They'll just find out what your wage is, how much you're spending out on serious financial things, and then they'll give you an amount that they think you can afford to borrow. And that figure should have already taken into account the fact that you do have expenses. You need travel to maybe get to work, you need to buy food to eat, and so on and so forth. And that's why they also ask about dependents and things, because if you have children, they will lend you less money because they are assuming that you're obviously going to be spending out on maybe childcare costs and things like that. And so the bank already take those kind of things into account with their figures, but sometimes brokers can get you different deals and things. But yeah, it's a good idea to just keep track of what you're spending, so you know what's going out every month, and when you get asked some of these questions, you'll have the answers to them already. There are a few different things you can do to prepare to become a homeowner, and I have a video on that. It's split into two parts because it was before I was verified, so I'll put part one maybe up here, and then part two is linked in that video. So the video will just give you 7 quick tips, things that you can do to just get ready to buy a home if you're not quite at that stage where you're ready to go out and find a property. That video will talk about some of the things that you can do. Okay, so here are the steps. Number 1 is to find out how much you can afford, and by that I mean how much is the bank going to give you and how much deposit do you have as well. Those two numbers together is the amount that you can afford to spend on a property. The easiest way to figure this out is to just use one of the bank's affordability calculators. If you go onto their website, you can just type your figures in, type out all your things that you spend out per month and so on, and they will give you an amount that they're willing to give you, and it will let you know roughly what kind of property you can afford to buy. So those calculators online, sometimes they want you to kind of have a property in mind before you use them, and so they might ask you how much is the property's value. Sometimes I find it a bit of an anticlimax though, because you could go out and you could say, oh okay, I've seen a house for something sensible, so £250,000, and then you might type that figure in, you might put your salary in, all of your details in, and then they'll say, oh no, sorry, we can't give you that amount, so you wouldn't be able to afford that house. So for me, I like to calculate before I even use one of those things, what is my wage? And as I said in my previous video, they're going to times that, at least my bank times it by 4.49. So my wage times 4.49. If I don't have any debt, then that's what the bank's willing to lend me. Then I can have a look at what I've got maybe in the bank saved up, put those two numbers together, and then that's the amount that I can afford. But if you know you've got lots of debt around, or maybe you have a student loans aren't too bad, but if you've got car finance and things like that, then those online calculators are really good to use, because it will give you a figure, and usually whatever the figure is that they give you is the amount that they will actually give you. So you put accurate information in and it will give you accurate results, and you can almost kind of bank on it, especially if you don't have a poor credit history as well. So if you're not sure, use one of those affordability calculators and it will help you. Even if you put a property price in and it says, oh sorry, we can't lend you on this, it will say, but we're willing to give you this amount. So it will let you know the maximum that that particular bank is willing to give you. And again, you just add that to your deposit, and then you've got your figure for what to work with when you start looking for houses. Once you've used a bank's calculator, what will happen is at the end of it, it will pop up and say, would you like to do an agreement in principle? And you could do an agreement in principle at that stage, and it's quite quick to do. It takes a few minutes. You just put your details in, and then the bank will do a soft search on you just to check that your credit history is kind of okay and that they would be willing to lend. And once you have that AIP, that's what you're going to be able to use to prove to the estate agent that you can afford a property. So you could do it at this point, or you could do it a bit later on when you know definitely what you're doing, or if you know that you're about to change jobs, for example, and your figures might change, then you could hold off and do the AIP a bit later, so that you have the right information. Because if maybe you're going to be able to get more money, then you don't want an old AIP that's not based on your current situation. And so if you're definitely ready to start looking for properties, then yeah, go ahead and do it, but if not, then hold off, because they have an expiry date as well. So I can't remember off the top of my head how long they last, whether it's 3 months or something, I'm not sure, but it has an expiry date and it will say the expiry date on it as well. I do have a whole video that talks about how to use those online websites. I'll leave a card for you up here and you can check that video out, and you can see how to use the websites, or you can just kind of look through the video to see what kind of information you need to have to be able to put into the website. So step number 2 is to find properties that match your budget. You can use websites like Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market. There's quite a few different ones to be able to find properties. You can also go direct to the estate agents. You can use their websites. You can look in their shop fronts as well. You can also look at places like Facebook or Gumtree, because sometimes people put the listings on there, and sometimes it's hard to sift through all of the different things because people will use all kinds of keywords that don't really match the property, and so it's hard to just find like a genuine listing. But you can actually do that, and some people do like pick up properties on like Gumtree and stuff, so that is another option. But sometimes the properties on those things are also on those other websites as well, so it just depends. Most estate agents will have signed up to Rightmove and Zoopla and websites like that because it's easy. They know that's where people are looking for properties, and so if you're unsure, that is the best place to start. And again, I've got a video about all of that and I will leave a card up here. What I will also do is leave some links to videos in the description, because you can't keep checking out the cards and then coming back to the video, so you can watch the video and then I'll leave the links all in the description. Make sure that when you're looking for properties, you're checking out the market data on those websites as well. You're looking for comparable properties to see how much they're worth, so to make sure that you get a good deal for yourself. And that's something that I talked about in my last video about what makes a good flip property. So definitely check out sold prices, the history of the property itself, and what's going on in the market in the streets nearby, so that you know whether you're getting a good deal. So the next step would be to go on viewings. If you found a few properties that maybe you like, you're not sure, you want to check them out a bit more, then you can book a viewing. You just call up the estate agent and ask them about that property, and they will take your details. And sometimes what they do as well is they ask a little bit about what you want, because they know that if maybe that property isn't right for you, then they'll ask whether you're looking for 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, what are you looking for, and they will send you properties that match your criteria as well. So you can sign up with them, and then sometimes as well is that before it goes on Rightmove, they might send something to you because they know that that's what you're interested in. So it is good to sign up with estate agents so that you can be one of the first to see a particular property. I think at some point I'll probably do a separate video on viewings, because a couple of people have asked me like what to look for on a viewing, and I do actually have like a little leaflet that talks about what to look for on a viewing, and it's on my website, which hasn't activated yet. Once I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'll also activate my website, and there's a couple of like freebies and downloads on there that I've already put on, so that's another incentive. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, then subscribe, and when I get to 1,000 subscribers, there'll be all kinds of things that I'll put on my website for you to download just for free. So definitely subscribe. Number 4 then is to put an offer in. If you see a property you like, you've gone on the viewing, you're definitely sure that that's something that you want to buy, you can call up the estate agent and you can tell them how much you want to offer on the property. So you could try and negotiate on the price at this point. You will tell the estate agents what you want to offer, and they have to go back to the seller and ask them if they're willing to accept that offer. So even if the offer's a lower offer, it's up to the estate agents to go to their seller and put that offer forward, regardless of what they think about the offer, whether they think it's too low, too high, or whatever. Sometimes you can try and gauge what they think about an offer, and sometimes if you have a conversation with them while you're viewing, you can ask, has anyone offered on the property? And they might tell you, well, yes, some people have offered lower and it hasn't been accepted, and so you know there's no point in you offering lower because no one's had their offer accepted, so you might want to offer asking price. And then sometimes they might even say, yeah, this property's been really popular and people have offered asking price, but it's early days and the seller wants to hold off and see if they're going to get a higher offer. So then there's no point in you putting in asking price because other people have done that as well and it hasn't been accepted, so then you might want to go above. So definitely make sure you're having that conversation with estate agents to gauge where other people are at, what other people are thinking about the property, to know then where to pitch your offer. If the property's been on the market for a while, or maybe it's just returned to market like the one I showed you 2 videos ago, the flip that I wanted to buy, the seller might be more willing to take an offer because the whole process has just been long and they might be willing to kind of compromise. Just as a side note, that property is now gone. I noticed it says no longer on the market. I'm not sure whether someone has picked it up and they've offered on it and that's been accepted. It doesn't say sold like it did say before, so I don't know what happened with that one. It's either gone or maybe the owners decided that they were going to fix it up and then sell it later, which probably is the better thing to do because then they can get so much more money. It's free money for them because they didn't pay for the house originally. They've just inherited it and it's going through probate, so they may as well hold it, refurbish it and sell it at a higher value. That's what I would do if I was in their position, but maybe someone's picked it up and it's just got different wording. It just says it's no longer on the market. Step number 5 is to prove that you can buy the property. So this is where your agreement in principle comes in handy. So if you didn't do it earlier, you could do it at that point. You can put all of the details for the property in and get an agreement in principle on one of the lender's websites. You could also sit down with a broker and they could do an agreement in principle on your behalf as well. It just kind of depends. But the quickest way to do it is to just log on to a bank's website yourself, especially if you've used their affordability calculator as well and you know that they're going to be able to lend you that money. Then you just do your AIP and then you can give that to the estate agent. So they will ask for proof that you're going to be able to get a mortgage, which is your AIP, and they will also ask for proof of deposit as well. So if you've got your savings in your bank account, you might have to show them a statement or like a screenshot of your bank account to show that you've got the funds available to pay and you can cover the cost of the property. If you're selling a house and buying another one, it works slightly differently because you might not have the deposit in your bank account because it's coming from the sale of your house. So sometimes you might have to show them like your mortgage balance and then how much you've sold your house for and then prove it that way. But if you're just a first time buyer and you are offering on a house, you should have your deposit in your bank account or in your ISA, whatever you've got it stored in. And or if maybe someone's giving you a gift as well, you need to prove that you've got that gift. Whichever way you're funding the property, you need to show that to the estate agent because they won't deal with you without that. Sometimes what estate agents do is they won't actually take the property off of the market at that point. Some of them are a bit stricter and I don't like it because I think if you've got most of the information there, then you should be good to go. But sometimes they ask for you to do the next 2 steps before they will take it off the market and mark it as under offer or sold subject to contract. That's not a good thing though, because what happens is it's still on the market, people are still interested in it. If the estate agent is kind of above board and open, then what they will do is if someone does call about that property, then they will say, oh, it's still only on there because we're just waiting for a few things from someone, but someone has put an offer in. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll just be like, yeah, come and see the property, it's still available, blah blah blah, and then it becomes a race between you and that other person. It's not really a fair way of doing it, but some estate agents will do that. So if they don't automatically take it off of the market, you can ask them to do it. They might ask you to do the next couple of things first. It just depends. Step number 6 is to instruct a solicitor. Estate agents will need to issue you something called a memorandum of sale, and it has the details of both solicitors on it, and it has the details of your bank on it as well. And so to be able to give them that information so that they can issue the memorandum of sale, you need a solicitor. There's no point in doing it before this point, because depending on the property is depending on the price you'll get from a solicitor. So leasehold properties, for example, are more expensive than freehold properties, because the solicitor will have to read through the lease, they're going to have to check it's okay, and so on. There's more work involved, and that's why it takes longer as well. Freehold properties 8 to 10 weeks typically, and then leasehold properties 10 to 12 weeks, and so it's going to be more expensive. So you can't really instruct a solicitor without having the cost of the property, the type of property it is. They ask you a couple of questions before they then give you a quote. I usually search online to find a solicitor. That's why I've had a couple of comments on my videos saying, but you have to pay like £3,000 or £2,000 or this amount of money in solicitor's fees. Well, actually you can just go online, and it's no different to anything. So before you go out and get a gas company to give you gas or electricity, you're going to do a comparison. Before you buy car insurance, you do a comparison, and it's no different with property. Before you start using all of these services, you're gonna do a comparison, and so you can go online and you can find a company and you can type the details on, and it will give you all of the different quotes for all of the different solicitors, and then you pick the one that best matches what you're willing to spend and what their service is like. So you can see if the cheapest one has bad reviews and they're like 1 star out of 5, then maybe you would avoid that one. You might go for the next one. It might sound okay. So you do your research on that. You don't have to spend £2,000 in solicitors fees. The estate agents will ask you to use their solicitors. You don't have to do that. They'll try and say it's going to be quicker and that it's going to be more efficient because they're in-house solicitors, or they have good links with them and they can speed the process up. Well, actually, every time I've sold my house, I've used my own solicitor. The other people, so the buyers, have both used the in-house solicitors. The process has taken the same amount of time, but they've spent like £2,000 more than me because I just searched online and found a cheaper one. And so it's a combination of price and how good the solicitors are. I've never had too much of a problem with using online solicitors. Yes, they are cheaper, yes, they are remote, but I've only had a problem during coronavirus. I've used those solicitors that I just used twice. I used them to sell my flat, I used them to buy the house, and then I used them to sell the house. And on those 2 first transactions, they were fine, no different to anything else that I've experienced. But during coronavirus, they were really quite bad. So maybe it's down to coronavirus rather than their services. And then there were also other firms online that had complaints as well. So when I was trying to look for a solicitor for the house that just fell through, sometimes you look at these more popular companies and they also don't have good reviews during the coronavirus pandemic as well. So it just depends. Do your research, and if you don't have that money to spend, if you don't have £3,000, £2,000 to spend on legal fees, then don't do it. You can get it done for cheaper. It might be a longer process, but the end result is going to be the same. But you also have to check the documents as well and make sure that you understand what it is that you're buying, because the solicitors will send you everything. You need to check through and make sure. And if anything feels uncertain, then you can question that and you can make sure that they do things properly. Number 7 is to start the mortgage process. So you found your property, you've put an offer in, the offer's been accepted, you have your solicitor instructed, you've got your memorandum of sale, then you want to go through the formal mortgage application process. And so this is where your AIP comes in. So whichever lender you've used for your AIP is the lender that you are going to go back to. So you can book an appointment with them. So you can do these mortgage applications in person, or you can do them by telephone. So my first ever mortgage application I did in person, but my second 2, so when I bought the house and then the process that I'm going through at the moment, I've actually just had a telephone consultation with them and they've done it that way and it's been totally fine. So during this process, what they'll do is they'll ask for all of your information. So they'll ask for your ID, they'll ask for your pay slip so that they know how much you're getting paid. They'll ask for any details of any loans. So they'll ask you how much your student loan balance is, how much you pay per month, which they can also see in your pay slip. They'll ask you about any existing loans, how much credit card debt you have, all of the rest of it. And you will show them all of that information, you'll give them all of the figures, and then they can then take that information and try and put it together to make sure that they are going to definitely lend you some money. They also ask about the property as well, so they'll ask for the price of the property. They'll ask you how much council tax you're going to pay on the property, which again, you can just Google any other charges on the property as well, because it's all about affordability. So if you found something that was leasehold, for example, and it had too much service charge on it or high ground rents and things like that, then when they plug all of their numbers in, it changes the affordability. And so they need to know about the property, they need to know about you and the property. They put that picture together and then they decide whether they're going to lend you money. They do prepare you quite well for these meetings, at least my bank does. They tell you exactly what you're going to need to provide and they give you a whole list. And sometimes what they do as well is that they ask you to upload it in advance of your meeting, so they have all of the information. They can sort of pre-go through it, and then when they talk to you, it's quite a quick process. If it's the case where you've sold a property and you're buying another one, so like me, this last time that I did the application, he didn't ask me for anything really. I think he wanted one payslip and that was it, because I bank with them, I have my mortgage with them, they can see what I'm spending my money on, and so there's not too much to do. They know who I am and everything, so it can be quite quick once you're in that process for the next time. So you will get a decision there and then pretty much. Sometimes if you're doing the telephone conversation one, they will tell you that they're going to call you back, so they'll put the phone down and then what they'll do is they'll put that information together and they will also do a hard credit search on you at that point as well, and that will give them all of the information they need to know, and then they'll call you back and tell you whether they're willing to lend or what is going on. At this point it's kind of a formality, and it's a formality because if you've got your numbers right and your debt is generally okay and your credit score, your credit report is kind of okay, then you shouldn't have any problems at this point. It is kind of nerve-wracking. They're like, oh, we'll let you know, and you're like, oh my goodness, is something going to pop up? But it doesn't, unless you've gone out and just before you have had that conversation, you've gone out and spend like £20,000, £30,000 on a car, then obviously they're going to see that that's there, and then they will maybe change the figures. So if you are in the process of buying a house, do not go out and start getting debt. And even if once you get the mortgage application, until you complete, you shouldn't really be going out and getting any more loans, any more debt. Wait until afterwards if you need to, because they will see it. They will see it straight away and they will know, and then they can actually then say, sorry, we're not lending. And people have had that happen to them where they've had a pre-application, they've got their AIP, they've gone out and spent, and then the bank says no. Or before completion they go out and get a car loan, and then right at the last minute the bank pulls their money because they've decided that it's not affordable anymore because you've gone and got this massive debt. So make sure that you're being sensible still at this point. Even if they say they're going to lend to you, it depends on a number of things. Okay, so they do their hard search, they find that everything's okay, they're happy to lend to you. What they'll do is they will go through the numbers with you and they'll go through the products that they have available to you. So they'll let you know how long you can borrow money for, they'll let you know how much your monthly payments are going to be, they'll let you know what your rate's going to be, or you'll pick which rate that you want, and they'll give you a mortgage illustration so that you can see all of that information there. The other thing they'll do at this point is they will let their surveyors know that you're trying to buy a house. They will give them the details of it, and then the surveyor will go and book an appointment to go and see that house. And this is the point that some estate agents want you to get to, so that they will take the property off the market properly. So once the surveyor calls them to let them know that they want to book an appointment, they'll book the appointment in, and then the estate agents will be happy to take that property off the market then. And the reason why they do that is because it's obvious you can afford the property by then. It shouldn't fall through because the bank have decided that they're going to lend, and that's why they're calling them to book that appointment in. Sometimes the bank can do a desktop valuation. They might not actually physically go to the property. It just depends on how new it is, what kind of condition it's in. Also, it depends on whether there's enough sold price data in the local area so they can compare what you're paying for it versus what other people have paid for their houses that maybe are similar, and they can kind of say, yeah, sure, we're happy to lend on this and we're happy to give you that amount. If they're not sure, if the property's old, it might not be in a good condition, they will actually go there and they will have a look at the property and make sure it's okay to lend. Because obviously you buying a house is also a financial investment for them, so they want to be sure that that property is actually worth the money that they're putting into it. So number 8 is a bit of a vague one. It's just to trust the process and make sure everyone is on track. So once you have the bank, they're going to do their evaluation. Within a few days, a week or so maybe, they'll come back and say, yes, sure, we're happy to lend on it, everything is fine. Or they'll say no, like they did to me on that last house. But as long as that comes back okay, then again, that's a good sign. The solicitors will be doing their job on both sides, and then you kind of have to wait for those things to happen. Once you've instructed instructed the solicitors, they're going to ask you for a deposit, they're going to ask you to pay the money for the searches, they're going to ask you to send some ID so they can do an ID check on you and make sure that you haven't been bankrupt. They'll make sure you're not a fraudster, and they will also ask you to sign some forms. So once you've signed all those forms, you've paid your deposit for the searches and so on, which by the way is non-refundable. So different solicitors have different amounts. Sometimes it's like £250 for searches, it can go up to like £450 for searches, but that money, once you've paid it, you're not getting it back because they will immediately apply for searches and then the money's gone. So be mindful of the fact that if everything falls through, you will have lost that money. The solicitors will also send you information as it comes through. So once the searches come back, they'll send it to you. They will also have a look at it and they will highlight anything that they think needs to be highlighted, but you also need to read through it and make sure you understand whether radon gas affects the property, whether it's in a flood risk zone, whatever the different things are that the searches reveals. You need to read through it, but they will highlight things to you. They will ask questions as well. So if it's in an area where there's like radon gas or where there's like subsidence, then they'll ask the seller whether they have experienced any subsidence or anything like that, or whether they've done a radon report, and then seller has to just respond to those questions. They will also give you a property information pack, and that will have everything that the seller's given to you. So all of the fixtures, all of the fittings, they'll let you know what services there are, whether there's gas there, electricity there, all of the different things, who owns what fence, who is responsible for the different things, and also you'll be able to see at some point the title as well, so that you know exactly what you're getting, any covenants or easements on the land, anything like that. They'll send it all to you. They will read through it and they will let you know if there's anything to know, but you also read through it as well. This is also quite an important process for new builds as well, just because it's a new building and everything should be in hand, and hopefully house builders are building things to code. You still need to get the searches done and check those out. You still need to read through the information that's going to be on the title as well, because they might have restrictive covenants that say things like you can't build anything unless you tell us, or you have to pay a certain amount of money before you can build something, or whatever. There's all kinds of restrictive covenants in those as well. So if you're going for a new build, make sure again you read through that information and make sure that you are happy with it. If there's some kind of lease involved, then again you need to make sure you read through all of that information. Make sure you know what you're restricted from doing, what you're allowed to do, how often you have to decorate the inside of the property, all of the different bits. Also make sure there's no rising ground rents and dodgy things like that. And again, the solicitor should pick that up, but you also should be reading through as well and asking any questions about anything that you are not sure about. You might have to make a few phone calls at this point just to make sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. You can check with the estate agent as well, because sometimes they have something called a sales progressor, and then that person will go between the two solicitors and make sure that, you know, if there's documents to be sent, that those documents are sent, and they'll just be a go-between basically. Another thing you could do at this point is a building survey of your own. So you don't necessarily just have to rely on the valuation report from your bank. You can get other surveys done as well, and I've talked about these surveys as well in previous videos. So you could do a condition report, a home buyer's report, or a full structural survey on a property to see where any issues might be and whether again you're happy to buy it or whether the price is right. Sometimes they will give you a valuation as well, and if that valuation comes through lower, you might go back to the seller at that point and just say, well, actually all of these works need doing, and so maybe we can come to some kind of compromise on the price. Maybe you would lower it. And you can see sometimes the sellers know that someone else will be willing to buy it, and so they'll just say no. Sometimes they might say yes, so it just depends at that point on what the issues are and whether they're willing to compromise as well. Some people choose not to do these reports and they just rely on the valuation report, but then you might get some nasty surprises. So on the day when you have your keys, you go into that property, it's going to be completely empty. You're going to be able to see everything. You're going to see where the damp issues were, you're going to see where things aren't quite right, because you can't necessarily trust your eyes, especially if you don't know much about buildings. So it is good to have a second pair of eyes almost and let somebody else go in and do that report for you. Some banks aren't as thorough as others, so as you can see from the previous video, my bank is quite picky, so they've not wanted to lend on 2 properties unless things got changed on them before they agreed, and so they obviously are quite thorough. But another bank may have gone in there and just said, yeah, sure, whatever, that's fine. But then once you've bought a building, you are stuck with all of the issues. So if there's subsidence, which they were worried about in one of the properties I went to see, then you have to deal with that subsidence. If cracks start appearing everywhere, then that's on you. You have to do the underpinning. You have to pay that £10,000 to get that sorted. Or if there's damp, or if there's asbestos and so on, you're the one that has to deal with that. So So this is the stage to ask questions, make sure you know exactly what that building is about, and get any money off of the price if you need to, if it's not worth what you originally thought and what the seller originally thought that it was as well. During the conveyancing process, you'll hear something called raising inquiries. So your solicitor will ask questions on your behalf, and they'll put those questions to the solicitor on the other side, and then the solicitor on the other side will ask the seller any questions that you need to know, and then you'll get all of the information that you've asked for, and you should have a very clear picture of that property before you then move to the next stage. Okay, so number 9 is pay your deposit and exchange contracts. So exchange of contracts is the point of no return. You've agreed to buy the building, the seller has agreed to sell the building, and it has to happen. If it doesn't happen, if anyone pulls out for whatever reason, then there could be penalties involved. They can take you to court for pulling out, you could take them to court for pulling out, and it's quite financially expensive. So once you've exchanged, that's it. So you'll have a contract to sign, and you'll have to sign your signature, and you have to get someone to witness that as well. Sometimes some solicitors have you do that earlier on in the process, because what they do is they put the two contracts together as one document. There's space on the contract for the seller to sign, and then there's space on the contract for you to sign, but you never ever meet. So you fill out your one, they fill out their one, and then the solicitors kind of bring it together. And so sometimes solicitors will have you do that really early on, just so that it's ready and it speeds up the process. Or sometimes they will send it to you at this point. They'll ask you to sign it in the presence of a witness properly. You can't do electronic signatures on this one. You sign it and then you send it to them, and they will exchange on your behalf. So you will also have to pay your deposit to the solicitors so that they have it ready for completion, and then they will ask you if you're ready to exchange. They will ask you what day you want to complete on, and then they will find out from the other side whether the dates match up. Once you agree on a date, then they can exchange for you. They'll call you or they'll email you to say, is it okay for me to exchange on your behalf so that you can complete on this day? And then you'll say yes. Then they will get in touch with the solicitors on the other side, and they will exchange contracts, and then they will call you afterwards to say, I've exchanged contracts on your behalf, your completion date is so and so date, and then they will just tell you roughly what time you can expect it to happen as well. Number 10 then has to be complete. So this is the day where you can get the keys, and it happens anytime from sort of around 12 o'clock. It depends on when the money comes from the bank and all of the different transfers that might need to happen. Sometimes if there's chains involved, it can take a bit of time, and sometimes completion can be as late as like 4 p.m. But from 12 is usually what most people work with, and sellers will also try and be out by 12 usually as well. So once you've got that call to say that you've completed, you are officially a homeowner. Number 11 is to pick up the keys. So once you've had that call, you can then go and pick up the keys. If you go before that, no one is giving you any keys because your money hasn't been put onto the property yet, and so you have to just be patient and wait for that call. So once you get the keys, you can go to your property, you can turn the key in the lock, and you can enjoy your property. And sometimes you can see all of the things that the previous owner has left behind, and to be honest, I completely understand that now, because it can be such a pressure thing to get out by 12 o'clock if you haven't been like properly like on the ball and all packed up and ready to go. On that day you're just like, oh my goodness. And so sometimes you get a few pleasant surprises, and sometimes you get a few nasty surprises. So on my last house, the previous owners actually left me some flowers, which was lovely, but there were also lots of other little things that I found which weren't so pleasant, so it was like good and bad. So expect the unexpected sometimes, and there's not too much you can do about it. It's the nature of buying houses. So when you go there, if something's not quite right, then it just is what it is. But that's why you have to be really thorough in the conveyancing process. Ask your solicitors lots of questions. If you're not sure about the building, get your surveys done and everything so that you don't have as many surprises. Hopefully it's just maybe they've left a few things or two hanging around in the property because they couldn't pack it or they didn't want to take it or whatever. Hopefully that explains the house buying process for anyone who hasn't been through that process before. I hope that's been quite a good overview of the different steps involved, and hopefully it's given you a bit more confidence so that if you're about to start that journey, you have some kind of idea of what to do. As I said earlier in the video, I've got lots of different videos to help you on that journey, and I will link as many of them as possible in the description so that you can refer to them and check them out and then be prepared for each stage. Of course, things can go wrong in the process. You might decide to pull out because the property might not match your expectations. The bank might say they don't want to lend on it. The seller might also change their mind as well. And I've had all of those things happen for me. But so long as everything goes smoothly, you end up with the keys and you end up with a property, which hopefully is a good financial investment for you. If you've liked this video, then please give it a like. Please share it if you think anyone else might benefit from this video. And don't forget to leave me a comment down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. You take care of yourselves and I'll see you in the next video.